Come on in, come on in, come on in, hit the thumbs up. We have a jam-packed show today. We're going to cover a lot of stuff here. You're going to leave this live stream edified. That's a guarantee. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up for me, please. Just let that algorithm know from the start that you want other people to join this live stream. All right, we're going to have some fun. We're going to look at some very important issues today, okay? We're having an event. We're going to have an event down here in Baltimore. I'm going to let you know when. We being my company, my family's company, Health Wealth Link. We're the title sponsor of an event called the Server Games that we're going to have down here in Baltimore next week. I'll tell you all about it. If you're in the area, join us. I would be happy for you to join us. Deb, good to see you. I hope your Friday is progressing well. It is Friday, right? I believe it is Friday. Everybody, hit that thumbs up as you come in. We got 4 folk. Oh, we got 5 folk in. Hit the thumbs up so that we can get this party started. We're going to start out today. And I know, listen, what we're going to cover is going to be actionable, right? Everything we do here, we want you to be able to walk away and be able to say, hey, you know what? I got something I can implement to make my life better, my economic situation better. We always want to do that here, right? So we're going to do that today. Housekeeping, Health Wealth Link, our company. We have the 2026 Economic Survival Guide. It's 100% free to you. All you've got to do in order to get access to one actionable tip, one actionable financial tip every week. Okay, we're on week 3. We got 3 tips out there. All you've got to do to get access to it is go to healthwealthlink.com/join. I will put that in the chat. I meant to do it earlier, but oh well. I'll put that in the chat so that everybody can take advantage of that. Some of you have already. I appreciate it. What time do we have? We got a couple of minutes. We'll let people file in. Hit that thumbs up. Get this party started. You know, if you've been watching our uploads, that we have a new kind of new direction. What we're doing with the uploads and everything we do, what we're doing with the uploads in specific, is we are looking at this technology. Now, we're hearing that AI is going to put people out of jobs. We're watching drones chase people around and blow them up. Okay, technology is getting really interesting, scary in some cases, right? But what we have to do, because we have families, we have futures, we got to figure out where we fit in and how to exploit this stuff to our advantage. We are beyond politics. I was talking with a buddy last night, and we both agreed. This guy, great. I mean, this guy is a great guy, okay? He's on the left. I'm on the right. But he's sane. He's rational. He can reason, okay? And we were discussing, and we agreed upon the fact that, you know, we're moving beyond politics. And in many ways, we have transcended politics for many reasons. Chief among them, that we got a lot of people in politics who they might have gotten in for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. But the case is today that a lot of people are in these positions of power for self-serving reasons, right? There can be no other explanation when I look at a situation like the fact that so many people are falling behind on their gas and electric bills, right? Retirees that have worked all their lives, families that are just struggling financially. But your politicians are not, in this state, are not helping the situation. You look out in California, you got the homelessness crisis, right? They have literally spent hundreds of billions of dollars on homelessness over the years, only to grow the problem. Why has the problem grown? Well, because it pays. Okay. A lot of these 501c3s, organizations that ostensibly are organized to get rid of the problem, they've figured out how to monetize it, right? They don't want to get rid of homelessness. Politicians don't want to get rid of it. If you've got money coming in from 501c4s, which can donate to political parties, 501c3s can't, but still, 501c4 is a charity. It's incestuous. It's self-serving. Meanwhile, the folk at our socioeconomic level are being forgotten about by the corporate elite, if they ever noticed us at all, other than the relationship as consumers, but definitely by the politicians and the policymakers. So we got to figure out how to navigate that. That is what we're doing. We're looking at these technologies. We're looking at what's coming down the pike. And we are saying, hey, we got to advocate for self, right? All right, we got some comments, and then we're going to get to an interesting story here I want to go over. Alex, hey, how you doing? Says, good afternoon, Tyrone and Tyronistan. Haley Stevens, who is a Democrat, said that Hassan Piker should be condemned. It's a good start. Okay. Doing good. And yes, it's Friday. Thank you, Deb. Good. Thank you. Okay. Alex says, Deb, when Tyrone comes on, it's my favorite time of day. No offense to the ladies at Pop and Politics or Christian conservatives, but there's just something about Tyrone that makes my day bright. I appreciate that. Let's see. We need to adapt to AI appropriately. AI is okay if you want to research a topic. However, generative AI is an issue. And you've said a mouthful there, because another discussion I was having with someone, a guy, very intelligent guy, okay, but he's consumed the Kool-Aid. We got to beat China, so we got to allow data centers in your backyard. Okay, we got to become China, basically, to beat China. Damn our property rights and liberties, and the fact that if you are going to be a data center in a community, then you got to be a good neighbor just like I do. I can't blast my music at 11 p.m. I never blast my music, but if I were so inclined, I can't do that at 11 p.m. All right? I got to be a good neighbor. Data center, Anthropic, the OpenAI, you guys can't say you're going to pollute our air, contaminate the water table, make a lot of noise with your generator, and light up the area like it was Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then say, oh, it's China. No. So that's just one instance that where I agree, where, Alex, we can tame this beast, make it work for us, because the big question is, who the hell is AI working to benefit? Itself and these trillion-dollar companies, or mankind? All right? You can make all the money you want. I don't care, as long as you provide some value. And I'm sorry, it's great that AI can create little cartoons and stuff like that. That's great. But when I say value, hell, if you're doing all this, then I'm looking for the cure to the common cold. All right. I'm looking for some cancer research and Alzheimer's research down the road here. That's what I'm talking about. You guys being these companies, they're spending a whole lot of money. They're going into communities and disrupting with data centers, making commitments they are not adhering to because there's no force of law. When I was running for lieutenant governor, one of the things we proposed was this. We said, all right, look, so we understand that the data centers right now in Maryland, they're setting up shop, but the localities You got two extremes in Maryland, right? You got Harford County that has just said, hell no. They put a blanket ban on data centers. And then you got Frederick County, who has gone in the absolute opposite direction, right? Free for all. And part of the reason why that is because these trillion-dollar companies are passing around a lot of money to local politicians in that county, Frederick. Okay. And I invite any one of them to come on and tell me that's not the case, because you're going to get a big surprise in terms of what I know and what I can prove. All right. So you've got that going on. And our position, Ed Hale and our position was, all right, first of all, if the locality has meetings and does the zoning thing and all that, and figures out that a data center is going to be located somewhere in that county, all right, if that happens, then the data centers will have to, they'll have to submit to and be obligated to quarterly inspections for air quality, especially around schools, water quality. And it's not just where they take water to cool. Also, depending on where they're setting up shop, when they drill down, they could just contaminate the water table also. So there's for human consumption. So there's contamination and usage. So we need a metric on that front. Like I said, air quality, noise pollution. You can't run your generator after 10 p.m. unless the power's out. You can't do any testing or any of that. You got to stay within the bounds of the noise ordinances that exist in the county. And finally, light pollution. Now, you set up metrics around those criteria, right? And if these companies violate, I don't want to know, we're not talking a $10,000 fine. We're not talking a $100,000 fine. We're talking a $2.5 million fine. Why? First of all, they have it. Some of these companies are trillion-dollar market cap. Second of all, companies, let me tell you how companies operate. They will say, oh, we can let so many Ford Pintos explode. It'd be cheaper than a recall. Okay, companies calculate stuff like this. This is no secret. Plenty of empirical evidence on that front. So these fines for these violations, and you're not going to say, oh, well, yeah, we got a noise violation and a water table violation. 2.5, no, $5 million. This is per occurrence. And you test this quarterly in perpetuity. These inspections never stop. All right. So that's a long-winded way of saying, yeah, you've got to be good neighbors, good stewards. We have to live harmoniously. This is not China. And this is not the Yangtze Dam where they flooded people's communities for progress. And they didn't have any say in the matter because it was China. So, yeah, we got to stay competitive globally. Absolutely. But if you're telling me that we need to become a dystopian, dictatorship in order to make that happen, no, I'm not interested in that. China be damned. And people have the right to disagree with me. Okay. Let's see. LJ, how you doing, LJ? Says, since January 2025, U.S. employers have attributed 170,000 to 180,000 job cuts directly to artificial intelligence. We'll talk a little bit about that. I know I went off on a little tangent there, got behind a little bit, but LJ says, I had my highest electricity bill in my life for July. It was $359.88. LJ, there are people in the state of Maryland who would kill for that amount of money owed to the gas and electric. We haven't seen those prices in a long time. My neighbor, he's away. One of my neighbors is away. We're all waiting to see what his gas and electric bill is going to be. I had a friend who he was at his house 10 days last month. And he got his gas and electric bill. It was $700. He was away. He was away all but 10 days. Okay. He was in the house 10 days and he got that $700 bill. This is interesting. LJ says, I can't live around people anymore. It got that way in 2020 with the pandemic and the riots. I live on 4 acres now, and in a few years, hopefully it will be 40. I am with you on that. I want, my neighbors are not close, but they're too close. And thank God you can buy the most beautiful home in America. You cannot buy your neighbors. And our neighbors are, we just fell into such a great situation. We have a road and there are 3 houses on our road. This is not a public road. It's our private road. And my 2 neighbors, I could not ask for better neighbors. So we got really blessed. Pramoxo71 says, hello to all. TK, you've been having some amazing subject matter lately. Thank you. Thank you for watching it. Okay. Because I know it's a little different, but that's the new tact we're taking. So thank you for that feedback. All right. Look, there's some problems on the Abraham Lincoln, USS Abraham Lincoln. Let's just examine this and parse out what's sensationalism and what is in fact accurate. Okay, let's look at this because these are our servicemen and women, and they deserve to have this very important issue. Our attention. They deserve our attention.
Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal, now among Democrats raising concerns about the well-being of our sailors aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. That lawmaker sending a letter to Defense Secretary Hegseth and the Navy's acting secretary requesting that they answer questions on whether the Navy is able to properly care for service members. It comes amid reports that the sailors are exhausted and being pushed to the brink. The Military Times also reporting at least one family is alleging a sailor attempted to go overboard on the Abe Lincoln.
I want to stop her right there for just a second. That is tragic. Now, I tried to look into, I know that this happens occasionally. Unfortunately, this is not novel. It is not new, where someone attempted to, end things in that way, jumping off a U.S. Navy vessel. Now, the Navy does not track. They don't track attempted deletions, I'll say, as YouTube guys. But they do have an overall number of people who went overboard. Now, some of these people are, they're not trying to do that. They are just a hazardous work environment, right? But for whatever it's worth, a targeted analysis conducted by the U.S. Navy from the year 2006 to 2017 found that 110 Navy sailors and Marines went overboard. Okay. In 2026, there have been 10 so far this year. So that is, and then they have more data here. From 1970 to 2020, there was a total of 352 service personnel that went overboard. Now, the circumstances of how that happened, they're not telling us.
Responding to those reports, the Navy says we have not identified an increase in reported suicidal ideation or suicide attempts aboard the ship. Let's bring in our senior Pentagon reporter, Louis Martinez, for more. It's interesting, just the verbiage in that quote. We have not identified an increase in reported.
She's killing me here. YouTube's probably going to gig this because she's saying that, but oh well.
Suicidal ideation or suicide attempts aboard the ship. They didn't completely deny or confirm. It's interesting, the words that they choose to use. So let's talk about the demands and what we're hearing, from the Navy at this point, what the sailors are saying, what the Military Times is reporting, and how this is really pushing this story forward.
Well, Kara, we should point out that this suicidal ideation is something that actually happens across the entire military force, not just aboard ships at sea. When we talked to a U.S. official, they pointed that it is not uncommon for sailors to be aboard a ship, that yes, there will be some reports of suicidal ideation, either comments that they've made or comments that are overheard by others, or that they self-report, or maybe even attempts at suicidal ideation. But typically what happens is that we see these reports happen towards the start of a deployment. And what we are hearing from a U.S. official is that over the last 9 months, the numbers actually have gone down, and that it is they don't corroborate what has been implied in some reports, that the longer that this deployment has taken place, that there's been an increase with regards to suicidal ideation. I spoke with another official who did confirm that, yes, there was one sailor who was reported overboard last month and was quickly recovered at sea. But that incident is under investigation right now to determine intent. We also have learned from that official that re-enlistment, which would be an indicator of morale aboard the ship, is up in recent months, which would kind of be at odds with the notion that the longer that the ship is at sea, that morale is going to be impacted. But I guess we should point out again, this ship was diverted to the Middle East. It did not make a port of call in between for more than 210 days.
That's important. That's almost a year. I got some additional information overall U.S. military. Now, this is according to the Department of Defense, their annual report on self-deletion. They actually have one. So obviously it's a large enough issue within the Department of Defense that they issue an annual report on it. There were 471 total force military self-deletions in the most recently reported calendar year, which is 2024. That represents an 11% decrease from the 531, which were reported for 2023. All right, so one of the issues on board the Abraham Lincoln is the fact that the plumbing is messed up, all right? And look, there's nowhere to go, right? You're on this ship, and it's a huge ship, but still, you're going to work, you're recreating, you are sleeping, you're doing everything on this ship. And I can imagine that would definitely become stressful, especially considering this very lengthy deployment. One of the reasons why the Navy tries to have, good food. Food is a hell of a morale booster, right? But I guess that can even wear thin at some point. Let's listen to a little bit more.
That is a long length of time. And so, yes, there's going to be concerns when you're dealing day in and day out with the same kind of operations. I know you've seen it firsthand being aboard an aircraft carrier. That can be really intense in a time of war.
Yeah, no, and that's a really good point. And I think that a lot has changed. I was on the Abraham Lincoln during Operation Iraqi Freedom. And, over 20 years, there have been a lot of changes with regard to mental health. We've reported on everything from PTS to suicide to all the challenges the military deals with. And we know now that there are people on these ships, mental health.
All right, Pete Hegseth he's tamping this down. There was a report of like a fight on board the ship, which I don't think is uncommon with all of the people that serve on the ship, right? But I do think it bears watching. I think it obviously says that we have to, as a nation, pay more attention to the health and welfare of these servicemen and women. And these lengthy deployments, I mean, we got a hell of a lot of aircraft carriers, right? It's just like, I don't know how, I'm no general or admiral. I don't know how these things are deployed. But maybe it says we're overextended. I don't know. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. I think it's important because one of the reasons we're able to sleep so soundly at night, and we don't have to necessarily, sleep with a Mossberg 12 gauge 6-shot at your bedside. Don't ask me why I am so specific about that. But one of the reasons you don't necessarily have to do that is because we know that the barbarians, they're at the gate, but they can't get through thanks to U.S. military. Deb, yes, standby power. Don't leave toasters and things like that plugged in. You're right about that because you're using the power whether the thing is on or not. Momo, how you doing? This is a question for you, Tyrone. If data center processing is moving to organoids, now Momo is talking about this video upload we did today. And if you haven't seen it, I really encourage you to watch it because it's some strange stuff. We're talking about how we, humanity, we have learned how to graft brain cells onto silicon to not only save power in processing, but also speed it up. Just watch the video. It's very good. So, okay, why do we need all of these data centers? Momo, your question, right? You would think that we could do more of that, but the existential questions I ask in the video, and I'll just ask you, and there are no right answers here, there are no wrong answers, all right? Because this is philosophical. Are you comfortable with the notion that we could be confining a consciousness to a living hell? Now, if you haven't watched the video, you guys might not know where Momo and I are going with this, but watch the video and all will be revealed. Yeah, I agree. They do need a break. That's a long time to be caught out there on that ship. Hit that thumbs up, guys, while you're out here, while you're thinking about it. Rockhouse, Source of Finance in LJ. I'm curious what the price per kilowatt hour is in your area with these high dollar electric bills. My last bill was $102 in the Ozarks. Whew. You better not say that too loudly, man. You're going to have a lot of new neighbors, okay? It's not just a kilowatt hour price for Maryland, but we also have this thing called a delivery fee. A lot of times the delivery fee, which everybody's complaining about, is higher than the actual electricity or gas you're using. And mind you, we get charged that delivery fee for the gas and then again for the electric, okay? Then we got all of this liberal bullshit tacked in, like, this assistance fee and that assistance fee. So that's part of what's driving it up. And then more fundamentally, it's the fact that we've closed natural gas, coal, power plants here in Maryland. And we've been on this tear with windmills and solar power. Windmills and solar power accounted for 5.5% of our energy generation in 2025. We import in Maryland at 2025, we imported 42% of our power. And the heavy lifters for us are natural gas and nuclear, so we need more of that. But that delivery fee is part of what's driving it up. Primoxo says, I was Army. However, the Navy can be extremely hard living. Everything you do on land, you do out at sea with a fraction of the physical space. The sailors need relief ASAP. Good perspective there. And LJ's out in Nevada. So LJ says, I live in the desert Southwest. So July and August are always the most demanding months. Cost per kilowatt hour here comes in 3 blocks, each with a higher rate from 9 cents roughly to 12 cents. Okay. All right, guys. So let's get into some, I want to cover this real quick. It's Friday, right? We're riding. Luigi Mangione, name ring a bell? That is the coward who took out the CEO of United Healthcare. Okay. The coward Luigi Mangione, who is from Maryland. Okay. And every time I say his name, I'm going to preface it with the coward. snuck up on a man in the wee hours of the morning, like a snake, no, not a snake, like a slithering rat. Snuck up on this guy, his father, took him out of here. Okay. Now look, I'll be the first to say we pay a hell of a lot of money, in my opinion, for our health care, my wife and I, because we're not working for a corporation. We don't have it covered. We have had situations where we've been denied. If you ever denied, exhaust the appeals process. Most people who get denied a claim, they never appeal. You got to use that appeals process. We have to great effect. Never in my look, I got a problem with all kinds of companies and the way they do business. And come on now, we're not going to get to this point where we're resorting to violence. And this idiot, this coward, Mangione, hasn't resolved anything. In fact, check this out. Where did I put that? Hold on, let me show you something here. Okay. U.S. adults' ability to afford health care is at a 5-year low. An estimated 2.8 million more Americans reported inability to afford health care in 2025 compared with 2024. Now, the coward Mangione, he assassinated the healthcare CEO at the end of 2024. So he accomplished nothing. Healthcare is more expensive now. All right. I always tell you guys, healthcare is that one item in our economy. Healthcare is inflating faster in price and cost than all other goods and services combined. Now, here's what also, I'm going to give you a little inside baseball here into Mangione. He is from Maryland, as I told you. If he genuinely wanted to affect change in this area, there are few people in this world better positioned to have done so than him. The reason being, he comes from a very affluent family. He is definitely a black sheep because the people in this family, the Mangione family, they are the diametric opposite to what Luigi the coward is. Okay. Very charitable family, done a lot for Maryland and Baltimore in particular. They own radio stations, retirement homes, hotels. They've done well for themselves. Okay. Unpretentious people. Okay. Not only that, they're politically connected like you wouldn't believe. They own the #1 conservative radio station in Baltimore and the Baltimore metro area. And one of his uncles was a state delegate. Now he's a county councilman here up in Baltimore County. So this kid had resources. He had a network. If he really wanted to affect change in this area, there are few people better positioned to have done so. So he has pled guilty. And the bad part about this, though, is the way the feds did it. They did not charge him with murder. And New York was going to charge him with murder. So there's a problem now because New York may not be able to charge him because of a law they have against double jeopardy. So the feds are going to have to put this idiot away for life. They're going to they wanted it, they got it, they undercharged him. Now they're going to have to do the right thing and make sure this coward never sees the light of day again. Okay, we'll monitor it, but I just wanted to put that out there. This guy. Oh, and what do you think happened with the next CEO of United? Because this guy was just walking down the street by himself, right? Like, hey, I'm good. The new CEO, you can bet, has security out the wazoo, which is a corporate expense, which will filter down into premiums. Thank you, Luigi, you coward, Mangione. Yeah, there was some people celebrating the the act. And that just proves there's some demons out here in this world. In fact, I gotta look. I'm not going to show these harpies. I'm not going to play the video, but I do want to show them. I do want to show them because get a good look at them. If you walk past one of these things in the street, you know you have just walked right by a demon. Okay, and they have some of the most vile things to say. I'm not going to give them the time of day to say it on air, but suffice it to say, incredible. All right. So, what's going on with the economy, right? On the one hand, we see the stock market going gangbusters, but then people are saying, you know what? It's harder than ever to live. Okay. There is something that most people do. I've done, you do, have done every day that actually is putting us further behind the 8 ball. And you know what that is? It's working a job. Now, I'm not saying quit your job. We have to work, right? Wages have not kept up with inflation. I have some data for you. I'll share it in a minute. Wages haven't kept up with inflation. So because of that, we're getting poorer, right? We have experienced decades now of undisciplined monetary policy. Monetary policy, of course, is controlled by the Fed in terms of money supply via manipulation of the interest rates. We've had that. We've had just obscene profligate spending. We're at $40 trillion in national debt. You add those two things together, okay? And it has boosted inflation. The Biden years saw cumulative inflation at over 20%. Add on the 3.3 and all of the other increases we've seen during the first half of the second Trump administration. We have not seen anything close to corresponding with those increases in wage increase. We haven't seen that. So people are working. Companies are enjoying higher productivity. You know why? Because they're laying people off and replacing them with AI. So if you remain at the company, you got 1.5 jobs at least, because they want to keep the productivity high. And you're not making, on average, enough to even keep pace with inflation. All right, let's hear from Greg Ip over at the Wall Street Journal. He has some insights I want to discuss. And we are going to talk about solutions here, okay?
Let's add another voice to the conversation. Greg Ip is chief economics commentator and deputy economics editor of the Wall Street Journal. And his latest article is titled, "The Jobless Boom Has Arrived." And you talk about how disconnected the stock market is from GDP.
Okay, the jobless boom. So part of the economy, and people, all the stock market's doing great. The stock market is but one component of the overall economy.
Is from GDP and how the jobless boom arrived. And you talk about how disconnected the stock market is from GDP and how the jobless boom feeds into that. What's the driving force behind that gap?
So I think it's interesting. The last 24 hours perfectly illustrate what I'm talking about here. The S&P hits a new record yesterday. This morning, we learned that retail sales, the marquee indicator of how the consumer is doing, are down. Now, I don't want to make too much of it. As Steve said, it's just one number. But you have this really interesting disconnect where the market keeps romping to one high after another. Tariffs, forget about it. Oil prices, who cares? We're up 13% on the S&P. And what I think is really interesting is that it's not just like valuations going up. It's earnings. I mean, earnings are up actually even more than the price index. And what I think you're seeing here is a lot of euphoria about the economic prospects of the United States, a lot of it AI driven, just gripping the market and showing up in earnings. And yet it's not translating through to job creation. We saw that jobs actually declined in July. That was the 5th time in 12 months. The weakness of job growth is something we rarely see out of recession, outside of recessions. The bottom line is we are in this very unusual situation now where we seem to be able to grow the economy at a fairly brisk pace. You know, the leading corporations super optimistic. It's not translating into hiring.
And one of the reasons I believe that is because we're at the leading edge. You know how a rainstorm, right? You see all the big clouds and everything, and you know it's raining like hell, just maybe a mile away. And you start to feel little teeny droplets, not torrential like it is over there, right? I believe we're at the droplet, the drizzle stage of the AI inundation. We're seeing a lack of hiring because corporations are incorporating AI into the mix and not people.
Do we tend to see that with big technological innovations where companies aren't necessarily hiring, they're not necessarily firing because they want to see how the technology plays out? Meantime, they're investing a lot to really wrap their heads around that technology. I mean, is this something that is unique to the AI innovation boom, or is it something that is typical in history?
That's a great observation. It's a great observation, and I actually think it is unique to this one. I mean, if you go back to the 1970s and 80s when the PC came along, you didn't see weak job growth like this. And the dot-com boom, the late 1990s, early 2000s, was a terrific period for job creation. And I think the reason why is that technology was seen as complementing what businesses did with their existing workers. Hey, you're providing a service physically, let's find a way to do it virtually. Much more so with AI, you hear a lot of talk about how it replaces what people are doing. Now, if you listen to the conference calls, businesses have stopped talking about, oh, we're going to lay all these people off. Instead, they're talking about how, oh, we're going to retrain people, or we're going to take the jobs that AI now does, and we'll move those people elsewhere. So that's not quite as negative a story. But the bottom line is the result is the same, not much hiring. And indeed, the hiring rate today is about half of what it was in the years before the pandemic.
Okay, so we're dealing with two issues here. We're dealing with the fact that wages have not kept pace, to say nothing of exceeding inflation. And then we're dealing with a deficit in hiring, okay, due to AI, all right? And I when this AI thing first came out, I had a lot of debates with people, and they were saying, oh, it's going to be just like the Industrial Revolution. And I tried to impart to these people, listen, there's a difference here. During the Industrial Revolution, let's take transportation, for example. This is the example I always gave. You had some guy who was a blacksmith. So he was making shoes for the horses, right? You had another guy who was making wagon wheels for the carriages. Still another guy, whips for the buggies, right? Okay, so you take those three guys, right? Ford creates the assembly line. Ford did not create the car. That was Daimler-Benz. Ford creates the assembly line. All right, so now we start to see the motor vehicle becoming more ubiquitous throughout society. So that's growing. Horse and buggy shrinking. But our three guys, they can work on the assembly line, okay, because they needed that labor, right? Or take the guy that was fashioning the buggy whips. He could say, you know what, I'm using some materials here that are similar to the materials that are needed for tires. Let me take a look at that and see if I can either put myself in a situation to supply and or repair that piece of it. Okay, there was a transferal of human capital and human intellectual property. I always try to impart to people, look, this time is different because you got a construct here that does not need a human to do certain things. Now it's evident. Now it's evident. Okay. This is very interesting. Okay. I watched this last night. I want to show this to you. This is extremely interesting and kind of puts in high relief and perspective where we are right now in terms of our society and our economy.
50. Believe it or not, in the 1950s, you could afford this entire steak dinner with the dessert for about 75 cents, the equivalent of just 1 hour of minimum wage. As the decade began, America was riding a wave of post-war prosperity, and to keep up with the growing economy,
Okay, let's level set here. The meal that he's going to show you cost 75 cents back in the 1950s. 75 cents was equivalent to 1 hour of minimum wage. Okay? What's the minimum wage today? Average, I think it's about, what, 15 bucks? Okay.
riding a wave of post-war prosperity, and to keep
That's a steak.
you could afford this entire steak dinner with the dessert for about 75 cents, the equivalent of just 1 hour of minimum wage. As the decade began, America was riding a wave of post-war prosperity, and to keep up with the growing economy, the federal minimum wage was raised from 40 cents to 75 cents, an 87% increase in one day. The steak cost just 54 cents, the loaded baked potato was 9 cents, the roasted carrots were 2 cents, the dinner roll with butter cost 3 cents, and 2 scoops of ice cream were just 7 cents, which brought the entire meal's total to exactly 75 cents. In 2026, the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, and thanks to inflation and rising food costs, the same exact meal cost me about $18 to make, meaning even an hour's pay wouldn't even be close to covering it.
It's so good.
2 hours worth of the federal minimum wage would not be able to cover that meal today. But 1 hour of federal minimum wage covered it in 1950. In fact, if the minimum wage is less than $8 today, that means you cannot take an hour worth of your labor and trade it for a number one meal at McDonald's. This is incredible. All right. But I wanted to show you all that because it kind of helps us relate to how far we've fallen in terms of affordability. That's a damn good meal. Honey glazed carrots, a loaded baked potato, and a steak. And people say, oh, well, it was all relative. Your 75 cents felt like no. No, this proves that's not true. Okay? When you can't duplicate that for even 2 hours of expended labor at the federal minimum wage today. Okay. How do we get here? Profligate spending. Again, politicians just throwing money away because it's not theirs. You know, it's not coming out of theirs. It's our money. You know, and they can make themselves look better for re-election if they use our money, right? Let me show you this. Hold on.
Things that cost less than the 2-mile LAX airport train. The Beijing to Tianjin high-speed rail. 75 miles of train for half the cost of our 2 miles. Paying $100,000 to every homeless person in the city of LA. Overthrowing the government of Venezuela. The Apollo 11 mission to the moon. The third tallest building in the world. The second tallest. And the tallest combined. Follow for more bullshit.
All right, so he's saying this little crazy looking little people mover thing costs $4.9 million to go 2 miles. All right. And he was giving you, all right, so we got the Beijing high-speed rail bullet train at $2.3 billion. Goes 75 miles. Okay. 220 miles an hour. This was some project that some connected contractor made a lot of money on, was able to kick a lot of a portion of it back into the politicians' pockets who approved this nonsense program with your money. Okay, that's the kind of thing that's going on in America today. All right. So look, the question then becomes, how do you fix this? Now, before we go into that, I do want to mention a couple of things. Our sponsor, the Baltimore Blast. I'd encourage you to take a look at the Baltimore Blast because, and I'm so happy that we are sponsored by them because they are an affordable sports entertainment option that's out there. It's also a nice family event to go to. You're not going to see any wardrobe malfunctions at the Baltimore Blast, okay? You got free parking, all that good stuff. If you want some concessions, guess what? You're not going to have to take out a second mortgage, all right? You're not going to have to look at your son and say, well, Daddy, I want a hot dog. Oh, son, we've got hot dogs at home. You just got to suck it up until the game. Because the hot dog is $20 like at an NFL game, you don't have to do that. So the Baltimore Blast, we appreciate them. And if you come out to a game, if you're in the Baltimore area, check it out. You might see me there. Okay. Also, I did let you guys know earlier I think I let you know that our company, Health Wealth Link, is one of the title sponsors of the server games. And we're going to be out at the server games. What are the server games? Well, that's where restaurant wait staff, they have like an Olympics. Okay. It's a lot of fun. It's funny. There's food for everyone. There's entertainment. We're going to be doing this out at the Bread and Circuses Bar and Bistro in Towson, Maryland on the 23rd, which is next Sunday. If you're in the area, stop by. Okay, we'll have a booth set up, Health Wealth Link booth. We will be there. But we're happy to be one of the sponsors of this great event, along with some other great organizations, including the Baltimore Blast. All right. All right. So we're dealing with all of this stuff. And let me take some comments because I do want to say one more thing. All right. So we got the we got the economic pressures that are against us, right? That we have to navigate. Then look at this. We are actually criminalizing poverty, which is expensive to begin with, right? All right, Carolyn, how you doing, Carolyn? I'm gonna have to reset that in a minute. Carolyn says, I'm late to the show here, but how do we ever get back to our manufacturing and customer service from overseas? I don't think we can. Carolyn, I think that ship has sailed. I don't think it's coming back. Okay, I do know. It's funny you mentioned that, though, because Trump just ordered that U.S. aircraft carriers have to go back to steam catapults. Okay. Right now, they're using like an electromagnetic type of a catapult. They got to go back to the steam catapult. It's more efficient. It takes up less energy. And more American companies benefit from that. All right. Steam catapult could launch a Cadillac 2 miles. Okay. So we're fine. So that is one example of us trying to, but when you get a president that does stuff like this, it's in danger of being reversed when the next guy or gal comes in. So hold on, guys. We got Carolyn in the house. And Carolyn, you're never late. Don't worry about it. As long as you hit that thumbs up, we're good. You can always go back and watch it on the replay. Let's see. Promoxel says, as far as United Healthcare, the next CEO gets security detail, extremely costly Secret Service type, however, much more competent than him walking down the street by himself. And, I'm not blaming him for that because prior to that, hell, I'm not going to lie to you. If I was the CEO of a healthcare insurer, I would have thought I could walk down the street by myself, Now, I might have had a concern about being in New York and just being mugged, okay? I would have never thought that I would be assassinated, targeted, and assassinated. So I never would have thought that, Deb says the grocery stores are out of control again. I got to go to the grocery store today. Yeah. Primoxel 71 says not AI. However, I even saw Panda Express had some automated noodle maker contraption. Another job gone. And see, I don't know how I feel about that, right? if I'm going to go to a restaurant, I personally don't want to watch a robot make the food. I damn sure don't expect it to be as expensive if a robot is making the food, right? But in Japan, there are a lot of little shops where it is automated. Okay. So, you know. Deb says, my sister works for Navy Federal and they are forced to use AI. Jeez. Training AI, training it. You know what I'm saying? My brother's a truck driver. He's got 5 years to go before he gets 30 years. And he says he's going to go ahead and get out because they already have automated trucks in Texas. They're about to roll out these automated trucks. Now they're going to have like an observer in the truck just in case, you know. But they got a Mercedes-Benz, an electric Mercedes-Benz at the hood cannot be opened by you, the driver. And it's actually a good idea because of some high voltage stuff under there. And unless you're an electrician, you probably kill yourself. But delete yourself. But story for another day. Alex says, if I remember correctly, if a goal is scored outside the arc, it's worth 2 points. But if a goal is scored inside the arc, it is worth 1 point. True. Some of that MASL soccer lingo. Carolyn says, I want people making my food. Yeah. You know, like they got the guys. Damn, I wish I had brought this up. So they're trying to automate all these vehicles, right? And they're looking at airplanes. But they said with the airplanes, you keep an airplane for so long, right? So one that just rolled off the factory floor last month, that's going to be around for 30 years. And it hasn't been set up for automation. Thank God, right? Oh, no, they got a fix for that. So they've developed this little robot arm, okay, that can manipulate and interact with all of the controls in, let's see if I can find that as I talk about it, in the cockpit, okay? And so they don't have to go in and retrofit the whole plane. They can just install this particular device and you can have AI fly a plane, okay? Now, I can tell you right now, I don't like that. Because one thing that our great pilots, here it is, have, this is a short video, it's 18 seconds, but it's good enough for you to figure out what's going on here. Look at this, guys. Okay, you could see, try to blow it up. See that? So that arm, that's powered by AI. And you can say, okay, well, arm, I want you to fly a 747. So you program it to that, right? So now it knows what all the controls are. Okay, arm, I want you to fly a Airbus A380. All right, we'll just, turn the dial, right? Now, the problem with this is, and I'm telling you guys, this is why I'm so uncomfortable with this type of stuff. The pilot, the human pilot on the plane wants to live, right? So they got a hell of a lot of motivation to make it work. You put one of these arms in, I don't think they have that, right? In fact, they might be able to just say, all right, well, not working out. Let me download myself over to this computer on the ground. Good luck, guys. I will tell you right now, I might sound like a Luddite. I will never, ever, on my volition, get on a plane with a robot as a pilot. Okay. All right, so guys, how do we navigate this situation? What do we need to do here? All right, look, I I know I talk about generational housing. We talk about investing. Okay. Yes, those things are good because investing allows you to get in on the rising tide on Wall Street, although Main Street might be having employment issues, right? But the other thing that you really, I don't even think this is an option anymore. And you guys can let me know how you feel about this. I think that right now, a second source of income is just a fact of life in America today and going forward. And an additional source of income, an additional source. You might already have two, right? Dad gets up, goes to work. Mom gets up, goes to work. The good thing about it is, all right, back in the 80s, right? If you wanted another source of income, you had to get a part-time job. There was no YouTube or none of these. There was no Poshmark, okay, where you could go through your closet and say, hey, I only wore this once back in the 70s. Let me put it on Poshmark, see if I can get a few bucks for it. Deb and LJ, I know you have those platform shoes and some of the bell bottoms. They're back. You can make some money off of them now. There are a million ways to monetize something. Okay. I was letting videos play the other night and it landed on a video about this young lady who knits and she like makes quilts and she got a YouTube channel about knitting and making quilts, right? And then she sells the material, the quilts, and will even take requests about she said that she is like, she's not a factory, right? So she'll tell you she can't do it. But if you have a special request and are willing to pay, you work something out. So that is someone who had monetized something, and she loves doing this, right? You've got a lot of times I'll say to you guys, and this is not advice, this is advice. You got to have an additional source of income. Because think about it, where we are now, do you really believe that we're going to look back on what's going on today, August 2026? 2 years from now, this will be the good old days. I'm serious. And I hate to say that, right? Guys, remember when ground beef was only like $4 a pound? Remember that? Okay. So if we are in a situation where you're working a job, right? So you got pretty much a fixed income for most of the year. You might work at a job where they give you an annual raise. Okay. Is that raise of a percentage that's going to allow you to meet or beat inflation? Probably not. All right. So you got that fixed aspect going on. You need to put yourself into a position where you can say, all right, I'm going to pump more efficiency. Let's take the girl with the quilts, right? She could say, I'm going to figure out a way to take one more order for quilts per month. I don't know how that looks in her operation, right? But she could figure that out. Now, she can't go into the boss and say, hey, boss, look, milk is X dollars per gallon and gas is X dollars per gallon and my rent just went up, so I need a raise. You can't do that at the job, right? But you do have the ability to input more efficiency into an operation that you run, that you own. And I'm not saying this takes the place of your job. I'm not saying that, right? I'm just saying in the world we live in today, you got to have that spare tire. I told you guys, I know a lot of people that got laid off in the last year. A lot. Okay. And they didn't have anything to fall back on. What they're trying to fall back on is getting another job. And I can tell you right now, in every case I'm aware of, it ain't going well. It's just not going well. We saw the report at the beginning of the stream, right? Where the guy was saying that people ain't hiring, right? So relying on, you used to be able to do that. When I was in the work world in the 90s, I came out in 2008 was my last year in corporate America. But when I was in the 90s, man, I was like, man, get it. There were telecom jobs literally falling out of woodwork. You could go anywhere and get a telecom job. And my friends were going to all these different companies, and they said, "Why don't you come over here? Come over here." I said, "No, I'm gonna stick with Verizon. I'm gonna stick with Verizon. Plus, everybody's leaving, so y'all are creating more opportunity for me." And that's exactly what happened. But my acquaintances who have lost their jobs, and I know a lot of people who lost their jobs lately, at least a half dozen, didn't have much luck. And one individual did get a bite at the apple, but for substantially less money than they were making. So now, lifestyle's here. And this person is not a profligate spender, right? But they got a mortgage. So lifestyle's here. Compensation now's down here. These are the reasons why we need an additional source of income, one that we have more control over. And remember, look, YouTube just made a crap load of changes to how they monetize and do all those things. But the fact of the matter remains, and there's a lot of butt kissing of YouTube out there. I'm not going to engage in that. I'm hearing people say, "But I'm so grateful to have the opportunity. I'm so grateful that they created this platform." They created the platform to make money. Okay? We provide the content. We're in a partnership here of sorts. And that's why they give us 60% of the AdSense. But, and people are also complaining. It's the other spectrum of it. And they take X amount of my super chats. Well, they have the platform. But you know what they cannot take? When I get out here and say, go watch the Baltimore Blast. That's the deal between me and the Baltimore Blast. YouTube didn't have anything to do with that, right? When I say, go to healthwealthlink.com/join, that's my company. I don't have to give YouTube any of that, right? So what YouTube has done is given us an entree into an audience, a potential client base, right? We have to look at it and take advantage of situations like that. Even with, I told you, I know of a person who went out and bought a couple of high-end SUVs and is doing the Uber Black thing, like heavy. I checked into that person after I spoke about him the other day, and he is doing phenomenal. He's doing phenomenal. He's got a lot of airport business. Got a lot of he's gone past 2 vehicles also. So he's doing his thing, right? So he's gotten into that partnership with Uber where they provide the platform, he provides the human capital and vehicles. And I talked to him. I said, "Hey man, look, I just brought you up on a, not by name, but I brought you up on a live stream I did, and that just made me curious. If you don't mind, how things going?" Oh, he went into, "Hey man, I'm over at BWI and I got some guys down at Dulles and we're doing this and we're doing that." And, it's all he does. All right. Now that's all he does. Now everybody is at risk. Okay. Everything's a trade-off. Look at what happened during the 2020 madness, right? So if you owned a transportation company, then you would have been hit hard. But that's what happens. Everything's a trade-off in life. Let me look at some. So you've got to figure out. Start out with something you like doing, because if you don't like it, you're not going to do it. All right. You're not going to do it. And I know a person, let me say this last thing before I get into the comments. I know a person who has a great business. This individual is a great business person, but they are so reluctant to get on social media. I don't want to do it because what they're really afraid of is the fact that people are live in the comments, right? Yeah, and I don't want people criticizing me. I'm like, what are you talking about? People are criticizing you now for free. You just don't know it. All right. And most of the comments, and I'm on several platforms, right? The overwhelming majority of the comments are positive. Every now and then you'll get a fruitcake. I put a post on Facebook the other day about this issue with the criminalization of sleeping in cars. And some guy went off on me talking about I'm a liberal and I'm a socialist and I want people creating tent cities in public parks. And I had just friended this guy like a day before. So I said to him, I bid thee adieu. And I blocked his ass. Okay. And you're gone. You've been banished, never to return to Tyronistan. Gone. And I'm telling this person, it's as simple as, look, if somebody, that's not true. I had one person in the years that I've been on social media, one individual really came off crazy. There was a debate going on about the Second Amendment. It was an intellectually based debate. Both sides were engaged in reasonable discussion. And so I started making a point about how slavery would have ended if everybody in America had access to the Second Amendment, and how we already tried gun control and how it resulted in the tyranny of slavery, right? And so this one woman got so pissed off. Now, she was on the other side of the argument. She said, what she ended up saying was she wanted to shoot me. And she was serious, man. She had a lot of commentary around that. So I said, oh, well, that's concerning. And you know what I did? I went to the FBI's website, FBI.com. They have this whole thing where if you're threatened online, you can tell them about it. And you know what I did? I sent her a screen print. I said, I just reported you to the FBI. Oh, no, I'm not going to get into an argument with you. Oh, no, buddy. I just called the FBI. Well, I just communicated with the FBI and I let them know what you said to me. You know, the next day she contacted me in a private message. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Please forgive me. You know what I said? I said, I do forgive you. She said, will you contact the FBI? I said, I have nothing to do with that. It's been reported. Whatever they want to do with it, they will do. And I have never heard from her ever again. Maybe when she gets out of prison, she might want to come after me. I don't know, right? I don't think she went to prison. But my point is, look, you got to get out there and compete. We got to. Nobody's coming to save us, guys. Politicians, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. Okay? Guys, I might have to hire security for that lady, depending on what the FBI decided to do with her. No, buddy, I'm not getting into an argument with you. I'm calling the cops. That's what I pay taxes for, right? Rockhouse says the AI robot arm does seem to be an improvement over the autopilot from the movie Airplane. Yeah, well, that is true. Deb says, myself and my children and grandchildren, we're trying to navigate our living future together. It's the best solution. Deb, we're doing something similar over here, okay? We are looking for land, okay, where we can put up double wides. And there's got to be enough land because family is family, right? But sometimes family is family. Can't pick them, right? So we want to have enough space for, you know, our double wides and whatever. And when my sister-in-law starts to irritate me, she can go back over to her 2 acres away. So that's what we're looking at too. I grew up in a multi-generational home. I'm a big fan of it. A big fan of it. Okay. Let's see. Carolyn says, I was able to buy a house on 30. I was able to buy a house at 38 years old, along with my sister and mom. Before that, I could not. Hey, The average age to purchase a first time home buyer in America, average age is 40. Used to be like 27. Okay. If you got family that you could do that with, do it every day. Let's see. Hold on, guys. Carolyn says, I was watching a Native American old man giving advice and only lately found out he's AI. Whoa. Yeah. 6 months from now, guys, none of us are going to be able to tell the difference. None of us are going to be able to tell the difference. Okay. All right. It's getting scary out there. It's getting scary. So, guys, look. Hit thumbs up if you haven't already. I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate you hanging out. Watch that video that Momo and I were talking about on the channel. It's up there now. The title of that video is Neuralink. That's Elon Musk's brain interface thing. Neuralink's terrifying hive mind reality may solve the energy crisis. Check it out. All right. Well, y'all have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again for hanging out, and I will talk to you soon.